Shavua Tov, everyone. A good and prosperous week ahead, full of good deeds to the needy. Um, Maybe more money in your bank account. Maybe that job promotion you're looking for. Maybe that job you applied for and haven't gotten an answer yet. Maybe your wife. You want to have a baby. Whatever. I pray those prayers will happen in God's time, and that you will be blessed. And more importantly, you will recognize all blessings, all good deeds, all good things ultimately come from Hashem. And that's where I'm at today. Folks, we all have dealt with a pandemic worldwide. We've lost loved ones, or we knew friends who lost loved ones. Many righteous people have passed away. We don't understand God's planning on all this. We know it's the work of the adversary in any pandemic, any disease. God is not the author of disease, but sometimes He administers control over the adversary to see whether or not and prosecute whether or not there's virtue within human beings of the day. Tower Bible moment, whatever you want to call it. It is what it is. The world system against the small, vulnerable widow and orphan in the street. That's about what it is. Listen, folks, there's pandemics everywhere. There's pandemics of the soul. There's pandemics of the flesh. There's pandemics of those things that we take for granted. It becomes a disease. It affects us all, whether it's toxicity, whether it's anger, unbridled anger. Listen, a lot's going on in the United States of America, in election cycle. People could break up family members and friendships and loved ones over this. Please don't let that happen. But what I'm saying is here, I am a friend of those people that love Israel. I'm a friend of those people that recognize that Jerusalem is the unbroken eternal capital of Israel. I'm a friend of those people that pray for the shalom of Jerusalem. I'm those people that do not support the BDS boycott. I'm a friend to those people that do not support a PLO embassy in Washington, D.C., or continued funding to the fake Palestinians in Israel that want to literally drive the Jew into the Mediterranean Sea. I will not ever be a friend to those people, whether they're a blood relative, or whether they're a friend or co-worker or whatever. I only support those people as a friend for those people that are lovers of Israel and not haters of the Torah and not haters of the Jews. There's so much anti-Semitism in the world, and I'm afraid on the next day that we consider blessed, that anti-Semitism will only grow and not decrease. Unfortunately, that is the issue. Why did the bad things happen to good people? Listen, that's a quintessential question that even the greatest of scholars, the greatest of philosophers have debated for all the time. Do not blame your ill fortune upon God. Don't blame your poor fortune on the King of the universe. Please say Baruch Hashem, even if your glass is not half full. Say Baruch Hashem, even if the election cycle does not go to your favor. Listen, there's a Haftaras, and it's in 2 Kings chapter 4, 1 through 37. It is closely related to Vayera, the Torah parsha we just had and just concluded from. The connection is a set of miracles to the prophet Elisha and northern Israel, and that time after the breakaway between southern Israel and northern Israel. But anyway, it's a long passage. I don't want to read all of it, but there was a series of miracles here. Okay, a miracle is something that we all witness and say, Amen. People may tell you that a miracle happened 2,000 years ago, but if you were not there to see it, it's only a story that is told and passed down to other people. Miracles are always attributed to God and not to human beings or physical objects. And this is a lesson that God even was teaching Elisha. He lived in Mount Carmel. Maybe that's where his synagogue was, or where the prophets had their command and control in northern Israel. I'm not sure. Elisha was the apprentice and servant of Elijah, of blessed memory. So quickly in this story in 2 Kings chapter 4, we read about an individual here who's a friend of a righteous individual, a woman who had children, and essentially she was completely impoverished. She had no money. She had no funds, nothing for food, nothing to feed her family. Olive oil was something that was used for every staple, to keep you warm at night, for your lanterns, also for baking of almonds and bread and things of that nature, all those staples that are critical for life and welfare. So Elisha essentially instructed this woman, and it's a wonderful story, to get all the empty vessels you can find in the neighborhood and community, borrow them, don't steal them, don't modify them, whatever. Ask to borrow them and use them. So she filled her little house full of empty vases. She only had one small vase of oil left. So Elisha instructed her to take that one portion of oil and fill all the empty vessels, and all the vessels were filled. And she asked her son, "Do you have any more empty vessels?" There wasn't any more. Elisha said, "Keep some for yourself to sustain you and your sons, but also sell the others for a good market price, and pay off all your debts." This is how God works, folks. This is how God works. This woman had to have faith, first of all, to take a portion of oil and to fill all the empty vessels. And as she was, I don't know how many vessels she had to fill before she said, Baruch Hashem. There's another story about a woman, an older woman. Her and her husband had never had a son, but they were very entreating Elisha. The first Shabbat house, essentially. They had an attic, they had an upper room, and anytime Elisha would come in through his travels, he always have a place to rest, he have a place to eat, to read Torah, and to daven and things of that nature. So we had a hotel or whatever, Shabbat house that people can come in and stay there on a temporary basis. So anyway, Elisha remembered the good deeds of this elderly couple who had not had any son. So it came into this is a Shunammite woman from Shunem, and essentially the servant of Elisha, Gehazi, met this woman and asked her, and said, "How are you doing? Is there anything my Elisha can do for you to bless you? You've been so good to Elisha, who I serve." And she said, "Well, I dwell among my people, Baruch Hashem. Well, I don't know what can be done for this woman that Gehazi was telling Elisha." Elisha probably asked Gehazi as you're going through the area to check on these people. I don't know if he adopted them as his family, extended family, but anyway, she commented she had no child. Well, Elisha said, "Summon her." And he summoned her and stood in the doorway. He said, "At this season next year, you will be embracing a son." Okay? So these elderly couple, who could, whatever reason, were infertile in the elder years, I don't know how old they were. Some people consider me elderly. They had a son. Well, he grew up to be a young man, probably a teenager, maybe in his 20s. He was a grown up, whatever. And he's working out in the field one day, and he said, "Oh, my head. Or maybe he had spinal meningitis. I don't know. He had some urgent disease." Anyway, they took him from the field. His father said, "Send him back to his mother," and there he died. He went back. And so you wait all these years to have a son. You have a son through a miracle, only to see him die. Okay. So this interesting story here. Again, Elisha was in Mount Carmel, and Gehazi was his designated servant, and of course Gehazi reported all these things. So they entreated. It's interesting that this woman here, she entreated her husband to go and notify Gehazi of what's happening. But this is it was a new month. It's Rosh Chodesh. And it was also a Shabbat. So you don't get on a horse, you don't take it out of the stable, you don't do any work, you don't light a fire, you don't do anything. But what are you going to do? Well, this is Jewish life, folks. The chai of a Jewish person is the greatest of all mitzvot. To sustaining that life, it even outweighs lighting a fire or getting your horse out of the stable, believe it or not. This miracle, Elisha was busy. But there's a lesson here, and I read from the sages, he put a lot of faith in his staff, okay? He put a lot of faith in his staff, just like Moshe put a lot of faith in his staff to part the Red Sea. Folks, there were no miraculous powers endowed within that wooden staff, okay? The miraculous powers were that faith connection between the prophet's neshama and his belief system in God. God was a miracle maker. The staff was just an instrument, like the Spirit of God is a dynamic force of God that goes throughout the planet and blesses people. So Gehazi took the staff from Elisha. He said, go straight to this woman's house. Time's of the essence. Don't salute to anyone. Don't say hi to anyone. Don't get in a conversation. You have a journey. Go there as soon as possible. Maybe he's not quite dead yet. I don't know. But this boy was stretched out in his room on his bed, and everyone feared the worst. So Gehazi came in and laid the staff upon his head and just tried to manipulate his legs, circulation, and all this stuff, and nothing happened. Well, he was dead. I don't know, they took his pulse or whatever. No breath. Sometimes you have a mirror above the face, whatever, no breath. He was dead. So the woman, the mother was fretting. I mean, she said, oh my God, what's going to happen? Nothing's working. I saw Elisha use his staff before and miracles happened and everything else. What's happening? So Gehazi ran back to Elisha and told him what happened. And Elisha came himself, took his staff, told everyone to clear the room, went in secret into the room, davened and prayed, because I know this impacted Elisha. He thought that his staff had the Spirit of God within it enough for someone else to act on his behalf to go and heal the lad. But that's not how it worked. God wanted a personal encounter between the prophet and the boy and using the staff. So he did essentially mouth-to-mouth recitation. Remember, the soul was initially blown into Adam through his nasal passages, his mouth, and when he was not animated, he became animated only when God blew his neshama into him. This is where the soul is. So part of Elisha went within the lad, and God healed the lad and restored his soul, and then he became alive again and perfectly healthy. He sneezed 7 times, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, whatever. But anyway, the boy was revived. This is pretty much the Haftaras Vayera. Why am I reading this? Well, we sometimes put so much faith and trust in physical things. Okay, I have a Making David around my neck. I like having it. It makes me feel identified as a Jew. Like a security blanket or whatever. It just makes me feel good, like tzitzit and everything else, or wearing this capote, or this black hat. But these are just things. These are physical objects that humans manifest with their hands. The things that God manifests with his spiritual essence and neshama, that's where all the miracles flow, okay? So if you're unhappy with who is the next president or whatever, listen, God is still on his throne. God is in control. But I know every observant Jew this evening, and they fear the worst. And maybe just maybe, we're dealing with that staff right now, and we're waving the staff around, we're davening or whatever, we're bowing and everything else, saying our prayers, and nothing is happening and to affect a positive change for our country that would like it to go. But maybe there's something else that's going to happen. Maybe we need an encounter of Hashem upon man's heart and soul to say, where you're going is not the right way. And nations have risen and fallen. Great empires have risen and fallen based on the way they treat the Jewish people. Okay? So if the next president does not say Shema Israel, if he does not say say a prayer of Shalom Jerusalem, if he does not bless Israel and bless the Jewish people as God has warned in Genesis and Bereshit and Numbers, that God will bless those that bless Israel and he will curse those that curse Israel. If they don't understand that, then decisions have consequences, good and bad. Okay? And that's where this Jew is at. Don't put your faith in those things that are physical. Don't even put all your faith and trust in a rabbi. He's just a man, right? Put your faith and trust in those things you cannot touch, you cannot hold, you cannot even see, you cannot even hear. That is faith, folks. That's faith where all the things are tested. And that's where we can all say, oh mine, oh mine, oh man. Listen, we live in uncertain times. We know this, but God is the only certainty and ben-Emmett truth that we can count on, rely on. I want everyone to have a good week. Shalom Aleichem. Listen, don't let your heart be troubled. Listen, I'm stressed out about everything going on. I'm ashamed of my country for its decision. I don't know why a Jew would vote for someone who hates Israel and loves the PLO more than they love the chief rabbi in Israel. I don't understand why people do what they do. Listen, if you're not focused on God, then you will do all kinds of crazy things in the world, right? But it is what it is. Listen, God will bless those that bless him. God will judge those that judge him. Whether it's friend or foe or family or a co-worker or whatever. Listen, if you don't want to bless Israel, why should you expect God to bless you? You might say, may God have mercy on my soul. Listen, don't get me started. Take care and have a wonderful week ahead.